Well, I'm John O'Brake. I'm here with May King again. It's wonderful to see you, May King. And we are doing our multi-continent experience today in Europe, US. And today we've got Dean Dobson from Australia. Dean, welcome.
Hi, everyone.
And sorry it's so late over there, but we really appreciate you joining us tonight in Australia.
Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, no, pleasure, mate. Really excited. I think, you know, from what I've understood from you and from what Mark's told me about you, it's you got a ton of wisdom for our gang. So it's and that's.
Oh, geez, John, I'm blushing now.
Yeah, I don't know. I like to bring out the best in people, you know. So welcome, Dean. Dean, first of all, what I'd like to do is just to get you to tell us your story. Now, I mean, obviously, I could go through a few pointers, but probably better if it just comes from you. So just tell us a bit about your story, where you've come from, and that's led you to today.
Okay. Yeah, well, so I'm an engineer by qualification. I suppose my biggest story is that I had 25 years at Microsoft. I joined there in '93, and I think finished up there in 2017. So it was a great journey there. I had a combination of roles. My first roles were technical roles as a technical consultant, designing big IT systems for banks and government departments. And in terms of I actually didn't spend that much time doing technical work at Microsoft. It was only a couple of years after I joined, I was given the opportunity to actually start up the Microsoft Services Division branch in Queensland, here in Brisbane, and start to hire support staff and consultants. I did that for a couple of years, was offered a role in Southeast Asia to start up the Microsoft consulting business across Philippines and Thailand. I was based in Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur at the time. And yeah, so I did that from '97 through to 2001, doing a little bit of technical consulting as well, but mostly to help to actually get the businesses in that division of Microsoft established in those locations. So I came back to Australia after the heady .com boom in Asia. It was pretty exciting times then.
Yeah.
And I continued to run the Microsoft branch for the services business in Queensland here. A couple of years, then I had a sales role and moved into national sales manager for the commercial business for services for a couple of years. We actually sold the largest Microsoft deal at the time to a big Australian customer, which was pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Then I moved into a practice management role, and it was called the incubation practice, and the mandate there was to actually grow the services business for Microsoft Australia by looking at business opportunities for new service lines. So we started off with a team of about 3, and by the time I finished that in 2009, we had 42 in that team, spread across the country and doing different things. So yeah, that was a pretty exciting time as well.
Yeah.
2009, I got the opportunity to run the commercial business for Microsoft Asia Pacific and Japan, and that was called the business desk, which was responsible for the larger contracts, joint ventures, and essentially responsible for Microsoft services business risk for Asia Pacific Japan. So I had a team of about 40, a bit less, about 35 commercial lawyers that were placed in different countries, and it was my role to make sure that the business didn't go off the rails. So that was for about 4 years. That was fun. Yeah, you get to understand risk very, very well, John.
Yeah, I'll bet.
And have to report that to vice presidents and make sure that what you're saying is actually right, because if you don't get it right, then it's going to come back to you, as well as the local teams in country. Yeah, so that was pretty pretty good. I was reporting to a GM in Seattle, and also to the Vice President for Services Asia there. My last role, so actually from 2009 to 2017, I was given the opportunity to run that role out of Brisbane, which was great. Because typically there was a bit of an attitude of, that type of leadership role has got to be in HQ, in Microsoft Asia. It's in Singapore. So that just meant many frequent fly miles, and many days and nights on planes as well too.
Airports, hotels, all that.
Airports, hotels, and restaurants, and
never lived that life.
Yep. It's good, but it's bad, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And my final role for about 3 years was a bit back to the future with my Australian role of incubation, where I was given the chance to actually look at the growth planning for the services business around Asia, which actually included a lot of mentoring of leaders across the services business, and looking at where there was business opportunity in market to actually grow. So we developed what was quite a good little business model, which was called a capability maturity model, which was to look at a benchmark of saying, well, what's the ideal business in terms of how it manages sales, marketing, delivery, HR, et cetera, et cetera. So we would benchmark that against the maturity of the country, and then measure that, and then work out a gap between what it should be versus what it was, and then work a business plan to actually step that business up.
Wow.
So yeah, that's in 2017. I left. I decided a wonderful career with Microsoft. I learned a huge amount.
I bet you did.
And it got to the point where, especially the flying, was getting a bit old, a bit tired. But also at my level as a regional director, being based in the Brisbane office was always going to be a bit of a stretch. So I was given the opportunity for a Seattle or Tokyo-based role, and I said, maybe it's time to do something different. And I thought, maybe do something completely different to the corporate role, especially with a very big company like Microsoft. And I thought, well, hey, startups are good, because I love starting up. I love development. I love the entrepreneurial stuff. In fact, I really appreciate my time at Microsoft because a lot of my roles were business growth and business startup roles.
I was going to ask about that.
Corporate environment. So how can I take my corporate experience and transform that to a proper startup? And I'm thinking, this is going to be hard, because I've actually got no small business experience. I've got heaps of corporate experience, but no small business experience. So I thought, this is going to be a challenge.
Yep.
So that was the rationale at the time, to actually take my Microsoft experience, as well as perhaps to get back to a bit more of a technical role and start up a couple of businesses, which is what I've done.
Yeah.
I just wanted to interject there, Dean, and congratulate you, because, I also worked in the corporate space, and you hear lots of people as they progress very high in their career, they talk about wanting to start a business, and they've got, ideas, but actually taking that massive leap. Like he said, you didn't have startup experience, but you wanted to do something different. But you have an incredible wealth of transferable skills that you would have been able to use in order to start your business. I mean, you talked about, I think twice in your career, you talked about, starting up an incubation program. And I'm sure that would have put you in good stead to actually start your business. So tell us a little bit about making that transition, because I know that, certainly for myself, I made a lot of mistakes. I'm still making lots of mistakes. But if you can rewind, that time back of making that massive jump from a really comfortable, progressive career to actually starting your own business.
Yeah, it was something that was planned. It was almost like I'd reached 50 plus, and I thought to myself, you know, this is something that is just inside me. I just love the entrepreneurial thing, and I thought, you know, I can probably plot along at Microsoft in some decent roles for maybe another 5, 10 years, but to a certain extent, in corporate roles, you get a little bit of doing the same thing, different faces, different years, and I could see that continuing. So I thought, well, let's jump out of my comfort zone. Let's do something that I do want to do, because if I was to wait another 5, 10 years, then I'll be kicking myself and saying, oh, well, I didn't do what I actually was passionate about and wanted to do. So I do believe, and this is a message for other founders here, that you really do have to have that passion to make a difference with your product, your service, because if you don't have that passion to really drive through, startups are really hard. So I do think that I've got a reasonable amount of experience behind me: accounting experience, risk management experience, business management experience, sales, etc. I mean, that's not bad, right?
Yeah.
And a startup founder's got to be good at all that plus more. And the difficult thing for me in jumping from that I won't say cozy corporate career, but certainly you had HR support, you had administration support. There's a whole lot of support to make things happen. But in the startup world, it was just me. Well, it started off with me. So that was a bit of a shock. And I'm certainly working and continue to work much longer hours compared to my Microsoft role. And I worked pretty hard at Microsoft then, but I'm working much harder now. The difference is that I'm passionate and I believe in what we're doing, and I want to put in the energy to make it successful. So that drive and passion helps to a certain extent to offset the amount of effort required to be successful.
Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah, that's so true. Because it is, you know, like as you say, I'm intrigued in the engineer becomes sales guy. I think that's a whole other conversation. But, it is. It's, you know, we say in Australia, you know, the chief cook and bottle washer, right? You know, it's you have to do everything, and there are those times where it's a chore, right? There's stuff that has to be done, and there's stuff you're trying to avoid. That's before. I mean, that's around the fact that you're saying yourself, well, there's inherent risk. There's everything depends on me, and so there's the stuff that personally goes on as well. That kind of
Well,
happening.
I worked out pretty quick that I got a hire. So we actually hired and I was very, very lucky that a number of my colleagues at Microsoft actually were looking very, very closely at what I was doing and wanted to follow along as well too. Yeah. So I've actually got on board as co-founders and senior roles. We've got 4 ex Microsoft guys here.
Yeah. Too. So how much can you go into what you're doing now?
Yeah, sure. So I'm running 2 startups. In fact, my wife said, Dean, why are you doing 2? And I go, because I like this and I like that. And she goes, you're mad. And when there are many times where I think, yeah, probably would be a little easier, especially around the time to run one, but I'm running 2. So the first company is called Sensovation, and we specialize in building business solutions using the Internet of Things. So for your viewers here who may not be aware of what the Internet of Things are, essentially our software is like Facebook for devices.
Yep.
So if you think about your thermostats, your motors, all mostly in the commercial space here, lighting, whole lot of things that are now connected to the internet and are providing data streams. We take those data streams and actually build business applications on top of those. So some good examples are we've got a solution that monitors for Australia. There's an issue with invasive species, where species which are that would have come into the country, pigs, deer, foxes, etc., which aren't native, actually wreck the local environment. So trappers and councils actually spend time to monitor that and potentially trap that. So we actually have a solution that videos and will actually trap those species. So that's one particular example. But we've built the application such that it's very contextual, it's very relevant to the workflow and the data requirements of business. That's our specialty around that. So that's on the sensivation side. On the buildvation side, we focus on building the hardware for high-tech solutions for construction and mining. And that's sort of a mix of my expertise in the software and my expertise in hardware here. So we've got on the buildvation side, we have a couple of solutions using high precision GPS systems. So for example, on a construction site, a construction crane is a very dangerous piece of equipment. And we've devised a system which is patented now that will actually work out if the rigger, who's the guy that actually straps up the load, we can work out whether they've strapped that load correctly, because if the load isn't strapped correctly and the crane lifts up the load, if it's not right, the load swings. Now, having 50 tons of load swinging on a crane in the construction site is a very bad thing. So we help to minimize that. So that's the type of solutions that we build. In fact, we've just had a win tonight where we just heard from, can't say the customer name, but a very big Australian customer that has signed up for our Australian designed smart glasses.
Fantastic.
Our team is very excited about that.
Yeah, that's great.
Huge potential there.
Yeah, awesome. So what I'm interested in then is, how, so you said you joined Microsoft in 93, was that right?
93, that's right.
So you would have seen Microsoft change a lot in that
time. Huge amount.
It would have been a much more innovative, smaller company. I mean, it's still big in 93, but a much more innovative.
It was a mid-sized company then. I was actually for the Microsoft consultants, I was consultant number 3.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, right.
So it was pretty small.
Yeah.
And what was good is seeing the leadership at Microsoft. So for example, Bill Gates in 97, when he turned the company around to focus on the internet, that was really hard work, and it worked extremely well, because the vision of what had to happen to make the company successful was well articulated from Bill down, and the management and the employees said, yep, this is great, we've got to do it, and go.
Yeah.
Now with Satya, you've seen the same thing with Microsoft and the cloud, and now look at Microsoft's stock price now, right? It's great.
Yeah, so I just find that interesting, because I'm interested to know how much that kind of influenced. I mean, I know you were there for 20 plus years, 23 years or something like that.
25 years.
25, and I'm wondering how that influenced, the journey you're on today, obviously, and sort of that entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, a lot, John. It was probably more the experience that I gained there, I think, would be the major thing. I'm not sure. There was some cultural things too. You can't work at a company like Microsoft and not have it rub off on you in terms of the culture. So I still practice a lot of what I learned and used in Microsoft, in managing teams and managing staff and managing the business too. So yeah, that's
how would you sum up that culture, if you could?
It's assertive, I suppose. In the 90s, it was actually, I wouldn't say aggressive, but certainly assertive. The business plans were very specific about what was required and what the channel to market was, and you were expected to execute against that. But also there was a lot of very inclusive thinking. So it gave me the opportunity to actually test my entrepreneurial skills there by putting business cases to my management to say, hey, look, I think we can get some more business because of this particular opportunity. And they gave me the opportunity for that. Now, not many businesses would.
Yeah, wow.
So, yeah, I really enjoyed my time there. Wouldn't swap it.
Yep.
But in 2017, it was enough and time for something different.
Yeah. Oh, well done. That's fascinating. So your journey then has taken you obviously now where, well, you said you were already mentoring in the roles that you were in, but your journey has taken you through, as I said, being a, I guess, a corporate guy, but in a different kind of corporate. The tech corporates do play their games differently to if you'd been in a mining company or an engineering company, or you know what I mean? And so, that's why I think, the Microsoft was kind of the perfect spot in a sense that you got to see a lot of this stuff and probably built some fantastic networks while you were at it.
Yeah, exactly.
And experience. So we'll come back to the mentoring towards the end of our conversation, because that's a key piece of what we do at Sandtrax. But what I want, you started talking about how you've gotten into the investment space as well. So as I understand, it's not just investing in your own businesses, the two that you're running, it's obviously now investing in other startups and other businesses.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. So I'm pretty active in the local Angels community here, the Brisbane Angels. It, to me, John, it's an opportunity for me to give back. One of the things that I wanted to do when I left my role at Microsoft was to give back, is to say, look, I've done very, very well. I've got lots of experience. How can I give that back to others? And I think the mentoring piece is definitely a part of that too, but also to invest as well. Yeah. I do that for a couple of reasons. One is obviously the fiscal opportunity around that, but it also gives me quite a good network. There was one thing that I was thinking about when I left Microsoft is your personal network is super important. And my personal network was built up in Microsoft, which when I step out of Microsoft isn't very helpful to me, right? So I thought, well, hey, I've got to actively get myself involved more in the Australian business and build a network around that. And I thought the Angels community was perfect because they deal with lots of other startups and lots of people who are in the Angels environment are people like me as well, but they don't have Microsoft specific experience. They might have some medical tech experience, other experiences. So I thought, hey, these guys are probably going to be very, very useful for my business as well. And I was tossing up whether I should join perhaps an old-fashioned club like the Queensland Club. Yep. And I thought, well, that might be fine, but I'll be sitting amongst the graziers and miners, and that's not what I want to do. So I thought, well, actually, the Angels community is perfect for me, and that was a reason why. But I also wanted to invest in businesses to help them succeed, make a bit of money as well too. And for the bigger investments, I've actually got myself on board roles as well too, so that I can again share experiences, but also be able to monitor and guide my stake in the business.
Mm-hmm. So what sort of businesses are you you're finding that you're investing in? Is this areas that you already understand, or
a little bit, yeah. So if I look at my investments, I've got I won't mention names. I've got investments in a company that rents out planes. That's actually doing extremely well. I've got money in a company that makes children's films, and that's also doing very well. Money in a company that has built a solution for monitoring the safety of commercial kitchens. If I pick on some others,
it's quite diverse.
It's diverse, yeah. There's stuff that I still listen to pitches through Angels where I'm thinking, I just really don't understand that particular business very well.
Sure.
So, I do tend to invest where I know a little more, or where I think there's a great opportunity to.
Yeah.
So, now the other thing with angels investment is that it's very risky. So what you have to do is you've got to build a portfolio of smaller investments. You don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket.
Right.
So you take a portfolio approach, and actually there was a study done about 5 years ago on this, where to make money on an angel's investment, you actually have to have at least 12 to cover, because startups are pretty risky. Most startups fail after 5 years, and you should expect that, let's say, out of those 12, two will do very well.
Yep.
Another 2 will do okay. The rest of them will probably lose money, and maybe two actually completely fail as well too. So I would like to think that I can pick the winners, but I can't. So I'm not at that 12 level. I think I've got, last count, about 8. That's not including my startups.
Yep. Yep.
So Dean, you mentioned how, with a small business, a lot of I don't know what the stats are. They change from region to region, I suppose, and country to country, about how many businesses fail after 5 years. Now, you've grown from being a startup to an angel investor within a very short space of time, within 3 years. A couple of questions here. So part one, what is your success? I mean, what are the, recommendations for people who are thinking of moving from corporate to startup? I mean, you've obviously done extremely well. So, what are your top tips for anyone considering of making that a big leap? And secondly, as an angel investor, you mentioned that, some of the investments that you've made are based on, things that you know a little bit about. But there are also, as Jono highlighted, you've got quite a diverse portfolio of people that you've invested in as well. So what is someone like yourself as an angel investor looking for when startups are thinking of pitching to an angel investor?
Okay, that's a long answer for both of those. Look,
We've got time.
We've got time. All right. So for the first question about how to actually become a founder and jump from a corporate type role, that's you probably want to go and find someone like me, or someone who's actually got that experience of jumping, because it is. I haven't seen any examples, but I have heard that it can be quite difficult for people. I think you've really got to have that burning, that sort of entrepreneurial spirit to make that happen. And part of my exit from Microsoft, I was actually given an outplacement service. It was part of the package there, and it was interesting because I got a very good rapport with the guy that was supposed to be helping me with my outplacement, and he ended up actually referring me to referring a lot of his clients to me to talk about the startup experience and jumping from the corporate to startup. Now, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily a shining star there. We're still working very hard. We're breaking even now, but we've still got a long way to go. It's definitely long journey, but certainly for those of you who might be thinking about jumping out of a good corporate career, you've got to make sure that you've really got that passion. You've got to have the support around you as well, and you've also got to have some money behind you. Either if you can fund it yourself, or you can secure others to help support you, because it costs money.
Yeah.
So there's a combination of things, but I think that the main thing is go find someone who's done it before to actually provide you with that guidance. Now, the second question was around the angel investments, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So Yeah, so actually, please, if you could replay that, because I've just had a...
Yeah, no, that's okay. No, thank you for answering the first question. Yeah, the second question was, what are investors, such as yourself, looking for at a startup? Yeah.
Yeah, that's also a great question, and
Yeah.
a long answer on that too.
Yeah. Well, this is probably the one they're all going to want to know the answer to.
Yeah, and this is one that I've been thinking a lot about because I'm on both sides. So
Sure.
so my angel investing started at the same time that I left Microsoft. So actually quite rare, but I actually started up startups and was an angel investor at the same time. So it wasn't like a later thing. But to answer the question specifically, that there's a whole raft of factors that that's looked at through the due diligence process, which is the process that an angel investor looks at your business to understand whether it's worth investing in. And I've actually got a checklist with literally 50 points on it, but you can boil it all down to maybe 3 key points. The first point is that the founders, you've got to have the right team. So you've got to have that passion that I mentioned before, that drive. You've got to have the network as well to be able to, get the support as well as the sales going. So experience is really, really important. The other thing to look at there is is going to be around, well, what's the life? So perhaps the first thing the angel investor thinks is, when am I going to get my money back, and is it going to be a profit? And as a startup founder, that's not something that you necessarily think of a lot, especially at the start. But the angel investor wants to know that they're not investing in a lifestyle business. So a lifestyle business is a startup that hasn't necessarily got an exit plan to make a trade sale, or a much larger expansion, but enough to support the family and get comfortable with it, and that's all great. But the business is like that; it's not up. So the angel investor doesn't want to invest in a lifestyle business. Typically, there are some exceptions around that. And then the question is, well, what's the likelihood of the startup being able to exit well at a high multiple? So as a founder, it's worth really having a good story around that. And the third piece, which is also super important, is that your product has to have competitive differentiation. So I've struck this a lot, and we challenge ourselves at Sensovation, especially because it's a very competitive business there. We've got to have really clear distinction about why you should bother with us. What's in it for the buyer that they can't get from the competition? What's that protective moat around your business that your competitors can't touch? And if you can't articulate that really well, the chances are you're not going to see that growth, and it becomes a lot more risky as an investment piece. So those three pieces: the experience of the team, the competitive moat and differentiation, and that exit plan.
Wow, that's a brilliant distillation. I love it. But so you said you have a list of 50 things. It's almost like 50 first dates, but I'd love to hear more about that in terms of.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a much longer discussion, John.
Yeah. We do run some how-tos, so that may be a good discussion in terms of we could just go through those in terms of if you're open to that, in terms of the how-to.
Sure. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So this is interesting to me because one of the things I learned very early when I kind of came out of my own journey and started, actually my last employed position per se was with a startup in Canberra, and and working very close to the founder. We had about 20 guys on board doing a lot of work with government, building web-based software at the time, which was kind of cool, right? In the late 90s, early 2000s. But it was fascinating. He would talk about, they were looking at getting investment, and he was very big on this whole, we're not just here to get money. We're looking for financial partners, people who are going to be as passionate about the business as we are. They carry our culture. So does that gel? I mean, now 25 years later, does that gel?
Yeah. No, that's actually pretty important too. Perhaps not quite at the same level as those three that I called.
Sure, it's still a business.
Which are success factors. I was actually at a board meeting this afternoon of one of those startups, and we were discussing the growth plan.
Yep.
And we realized that we actually have to bring on some investors to fund the growth, sales growth and so forth with extra resources. And the conversation was around, well, it's not just about the money, it's about having an investor who's got a great network that we can leverage, and having a investor that can actually provide some value to us in terms of advice and so forth. So my role with that particular startup is a non-executive director, and I actually provide a lot of guidance, and it's well taken. So I think you want to be looking for strategic investors, not necessarily people who just want to give you money with an obviously expectation of a high return.
That's brilliant. Yeah, that's so obviously that information hasn't changed over 20 years. So,
No,
that's certainly something that, when I'm working with companies and helping them get ready to pitch and that sort of thing, it's definitely the conversation we have, and it's like it in business, right? Because when we're starting out in business, we kind of get that this client that kind of looks like the client that we want to go after comes along, and they've got some money to spend on us. So we sometimes, maybe in our immaturity in business or whatever, we jump in with that client and realize, they're just really just paying some bills. They're not. But I'd assume the same would happen. Well, I know the same happens with investors, that there is that journey.
Yeah.
It's got to be that fit.
Yeah, that's right. I think another piece that I'd just like to mention about the money side is there's two approaches that startups can take here. And one is to take, which is actually quite typical for Australian startups, less so US ones, is a bootstrap approach versus what I term a fully funded approach, where the bootstrap is where you don't spend a huge amount of time looking to secure money. You've got a pot of money, but you're actually looking to prove out. It's sort of like the lean startup approach. But where you at the start, there's commercial risk. You don't really know if the way that you're thinking about the product, the way that you're marketing is going to work. So if you bring on investors first up, then you're asking them to carry that risk as well. And the good thing about a bootstrap approach is that it's harder work because you haven't got the resources that money bring. But you can validate the product and get the startup to a stage where you've proven the product, you've proven the market readiness around that, and actually the valuation of your startup is worth a whole lot more, which means that you can bring on the investors at that point
at a much more mature stage in the business.
Series A, but maybe late seed money that actually is potentially a lot better, because the earlier you bring on the investors, the more equity you've actually got to give away effectively. And I had a conversation with the CTO at another startup which I'm also invested in, and we were sort of comparing, because they took the fully funded approach and we took the bootstrap approach, and our businesses are quite similar actually. It was interesting just discussing the pros and cons about the fact that other startup spends a lot of time in securing money, not necessarily securing sales or building the business, but worrying about the money side and securing it. But they could go faster than what we could. What was interesting about the discussion was the CTO said, "Hey Dean, the one thing that I hadn't thought about with the bootstrapping is that you get to keep a whole lot more equity compared to me." I said, "Well, at the end of the day, that's actually what it's about, right?" So, pros and cons there.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Thank you for going there. I really appreciate that, because actually one of the very first interviews we did, one of the first Fireside chats, was with a guy here in North Carolina, and we talked about bootstrapping. And yeah, we talked. My mantra has always been, my favorite investor is a good client. You know,
Yeah,
and yeah, because they don't want equity, and they just want a good product. And if you can work a way to fund your way into that, and our clients will do that with you, right?
Yep. And we actually have a couple that are doing that. In fact, that win that I talked about tonight was actually exactly that, where the customer has bought in the vision, doesn't really know about the product yet. In fact, to be honest, we haven't actually finished developing the product, but
yes, we can do that.
We're close. We're definitely close. But the customer has bought the vision, and now the next step is for us to show what the possibilities are, and then work with the customer on what they want. Because this particular solution is designed for industrial use. This customer is not an industrial customer; it's related, but it's not. So we need to understand what they need, so we can modify our product to suit them. So that's great, because the customer will potentially partner with us and look at that gap and work with us to make a product that's actually custom for them. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. No, I love it. I think, we could certainly, I'd love to, as I said, come back and do a bit of a how-to conversation around investment and investing making. I think we'd all get a lot out of that, right? And it's because it's like that holy grail, where's the money going to come from? And, and as you say, there's the bootstrapping journey, which has its pros and cons. And then there's the fully funded journey, which has its pros and cons.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so that's, I really appreciate you going there and opening that up. And I've also, I've got 1,000 questions. I do a lot of work with engineers and those sorts of people. And I rarely come across someone as dynamic and as kind of, risk focused as you are. And I know that's probably, not fair in a sense, but you're investing in startups. I don't know a ton of engineers that do that. And then doing it yourself as well. But one of the things I wanted to do is shift gears just a little bit and talk about mentoring, just in the last sort of 5-10 minutes or so. And now it sounds like, obviously, you learned a lot in terms of, mentoring stuff. And I'd love to hear about what Microsoft put in place in terms of active mentoring programs. But then also how that's framed your journey. Now you're, yes, investing, but literally mentoring these guys as well.
Yeah, so Microsoft actually had a formal arrangement for managers and leaders to mentor. It was down to the point of having a application that actually matched people, which I actually didn't like very much. I preferred for someone who knew me and could see how I could help, where they approached me to help. And I had, I think, pretty much over my management career at Microsoft, which is like 20 years out of the 25, I probably had between maybe 3 and 6 at one time. And we were encouraged to block out time where the mentee could actually call up and ask for specific help and guidance around specific things, and that was measured as well too, time spent and connection. So that was very, very good. But I do definitely prefer for people to approach me. And also with the mentoring, the actual agenda is up to the mentee as well. It's right. Really their opportunity to come and ask questions and seek guidance. So I always left the agenda very, very loose. In terms of my being mentored, so typically that was through my vice presidents. I had the luxury of having, I think, about 4 across my career that I either direct reported to or had a dotted line reporting to. And man, there were some pretty damn smart guys there. You don't get to be a vice president in Microsoft and be a bunny as well too, right? So I definitely learned heaps there. Where there was one vice president where he would challenge me on things around the business plan. He'd say, "Dean, what about this thing?" I'll be scratching my head thinking, man, I just missed that. I just missed it. So I'd go back to my team who were preparing the business plan and said, hey, you know, our goal here, our job here is to make sure that our vice president can't catch us out with stuff here.
Oh,
so,
nice.
But, I mean, he caught us out. So I mean, so I learned each time he caught me out was like a learning opportunity there. Right. So so that was part of the culture of being able to not to pick on flaws, but actually to identify them, and as a team, as a business, actually learn. Yeah. So we had a tool called continuous improvement. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It's more of a mindset of being a continuous learner. There's always learning opportunities. So you're always looking for where your view isn't necessarily the only view, and not also the correct view each time. So you've got to be really open to some alternative perspectives and learn too, right? So that continuous improvement thing was part of the Microsoft culture. But you couple that up with the mentoring, and it becomes a great environment for skills development and learning.
Yeah, I mean, it sits behind every successful company, and it's certainly been the journey of a lot of the tech companies. But it's interesting then, because then you step out, and this is the kind of the big void for people that step out of corporate into their own business or their own space, and it's almost like there's an element of they feel that tap has been turned off, but that's not true, right? I mean, I've been involved in the business space in Australia for a long time, and I know worldwide, you know, now living in the US and Europe and places like that, there are people like yourself. There's people that want to mentor, that want to help, that want to connect, and so you know, it's translating that mindset of I ain't got all the goods, right? And I need to find the people around me. That's something that you did very, very quickly from your story. It's like, well, I had to go out and find co-founders and people like that very quickly in your own business. And I'm sure that's what you're advising or probably investing in as well.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, I think also I love to teach too. So I love to, so our team is a mixture of very experienced guys like me, my colleagues from Microsoft that have come across with us. But you know, 50% of the team is young guys. So guys that are either, you know, still studying even, or just finished college. So you got that sort of mix. We've got the 50s guys, and we've got the 20s as well too. And there's sort of no there's a big gap between that. But what's important though is that we do actually mentor and help the younger guys too, and they're pretty appreciative of it. And I definitely learn, especially on the technology side. They're very, very quick to come back to me and say, "Hey, Dean, that might have worked in the 90s."
It was good on Fusion, mate, but it ain't.
Yeah, so I actually retort with, is that what you get taught at university now? So it's a bit of a banter between those two perspectives. Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah. Well, that's really cool. And so obviously, you know, this plays into the whole reason we have these conversations with people like yourself who are doing amazing things and have an amazing story, is that, you know, we have this online mentoring space that, Dean, you're also a part of as a mentor. Yep. And so thank you very much for that, by the way. But you know, it's these are the conversations that you can have within our club, within our, you know, obviously joining our Facebook community, and then which is free, and then going on and becoming a Sandtrax Club member, which is a paid environment, but you get access to this kind of wisdom, and making as well, and a little bit of old muggins over here. But you know, it's that it doesn't have to be done on your own, and the mentoring space. There are people who, you know, we've got people like Dean all over the world who have done these amazing businesses, got amazing stories, got incredible wealth of knowledge, got networks and connections, and so I love that space. I mean, that's what I love about the entrepreneurial. I love about the business space in general. Making, you probably find the same in the UK.
You know, I definitely the same in Australia. You know, that people want to get in and help. They want to help you grow, and you know, it's about opening yourself up to that. So. So that whole mentoring space becomes so important. So we encourage you to come along and check out, obviously, the Sandtrax page where you can have conversations with us, and then you can join the Sandtrax Club and actually hear directly back from people like Dean and myself and May King. So Dean, I really want to thank you. May King, have you got any final questions or anything before we go?
No, you know, as we're bringing it to a close, just wanted to thank you so much for sharing your story, Dean. It's certainly absolutely fascinating, and you gave so many golden pieces of nuggets of information.
Like a lot of these, each one is like another hour-long interview in itself. You know?
Absolutely. But you know, the advice that you gave, you know, from jumping from the corporate ship to starting your own business, and then very quickly from starting your own business to being an angel investor was absolutely incredible. So thank you so much for sharing your story, Dean. And as Jono said, you know, if you are thinking about starting a business, you don't want to do it alone, and you don't have to do it alone. Being in business can often feel like the loneliest place on the planet, but it doesn't need to be. You've got Sandtrax, the Facebook community, and if you want exclusive access to specific mentors, then you can definitely tap into Dean's expert knowledge, or Jono's knowledge in marketing, and myself on social media marketing and FOMO creating as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, May King. Well, we will wrap it up there. Dean, really appreciate you. It's a late night there in, well, I would say sunny Brisbane, but starry Brisbane right now. But
yeah, it's hot here too.
It's hot. Well, it's I think it's about 2 degrees Celsius here right now. So we're heading for a warm one today. So Southern Hemisphere versus Northern Hemisphere.
Thanks for having me along. It's been a great time.
This has been great, Dean. I'm sure we can have more conversations, and I really appreciate taking the time. I know that it was, you know, you were really concerned about it, but it's just been beautiful. We've got so much out of today. It's been one of the more informative conversations I think we've had. So really appreciate your time. Thank you again, May King. Always love your smiling face, and really good to see you. I'm John O'Brake, and this has been our weekly Fireside Chat.